Hello, Whisky folk. Welcome to another Thursday night, another vPub. It's 10:15. I'm Roy Aquavite, and welcome especially if you're watching this on the replay like so many of you do. What I will say is, as I need to jump in and mute my browser window here, apologies. Yes, but bear in mind that these live streams, if you are watching this on the replay, go on for quite a wee while. So you might want to break it up or listen to it as a podcast. If I've been at all diligent, I've left some timestamps down in the description box below, so you can just jump straight to the quiz, straight to the uncorking or whatever it is you're most interested in. Yes, I got a lot of feedback to suggest why are these so long. It's all about the vPub. It's all about the community. It's all about the people that are here for the live stream. That's the focus of these things. And there's a lot of you in already. There are 58 of you were waiting when I went live tonight. Fantastic to welcome you all in. It's wonderful to have you here. And that's what these streams are about. I'm excited about tonight. There's a few things that's got me excited tonight. The first thing is, and I'll just say at the top of the show, that this is kind of an anniversary show. That's me just completed a year of these live streams. And that's something to talk about for me. I don't usually stick at things for that long, but I'm enjoying these. I'm enjoying these a lot. And although I've had to reschedule one or two of them, I haven't actually missed any of these streams in a year. And I'm really quite pleased that it's continued to build, and the feedback about these streams continue to be very, very positive, and you guys seem to be enjoying them as well. The other thing I'm excited about tonight is over my shoulder here behind me is Glengoyne's Batch 6 Teapot Dram. Now, I've been waiting all year for this thing to come out. It was delayed. There was all sorts of issues in releasing this one from Glengoyne, but finally last week they released it. And on the morning of release, I went up at lunchtime that day and picked up a bottle so that I could share it with you. I'll explain a wee bit more about what Teapot Dram is a bit later on, but it's really quite a special bottle and it's unique for Glengoyne. It's different from anything else that they do. So I'm excited about that. And the other thing that excites me tonight is that I've got a friend joining me. I've got Ben from Single Malt Alliance, also doing his brand ambassador role for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. And he's going to come in so the two of us can... When I spent some time at Glengoyne this year with Ben, and it was one of those meetings that we spent pretty much every minute together talking about whiskey. I learned nothing about his family, about his personal life, nothing. It was just all about whiskey. And we could have spent days, I think, talking about whiskey. And it was clear that some kind of collaboration or live stream could be good fun in the future. And it's kind of cool that we've got some matched whiskies that we can share together tonight and talk about some concepts like single cask whiskies, cask strength whiskies, and how they fit into our journey. Just before I bring Ben in to introduce you to everybody, to introduce him to everybody, I'll jump back to you guys and just say hello to a few of you before I start to speak to Ben. How are you all this evening? I think I managed to go live on time tonight. We have Zach Andrews in from Texas. Fantastic, Zach. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to get a chance to mention everyone, of course. Already 114 of you in now. It's just going to keep building, but I'll just try and grab as many of you through the chat as I can. If you're trying to get my attention, do what so many of you are doing just now and mark at Aquavite, and I'll try and grab your comments. Sherry Malt Drams is in. Fantastic. Aaron DeBoer, that's a new name, Aaron. You're very welcome here. Nice to see you in. McAllen Fine and Rare, the Doc. I'll get to meet you again tomorrow. Doc, I'm meeting you in Frankfurt. Super excited about that trip to Germany tomorrow for the Interwhisky Festival. Mike A from London's in. Fantastic. Colourless Blue Things, Cask Strength Vito, Alan the Whiskey Friend, Jason Whiskey Wise is running shotgun for me already, and he's in a moderator role. He's also sending me direct messages down here. So if you're trying to get a hold of me, you can also use Jason to do that as well if it's important. Daniel Vermas is in from Hungary. Superb, Daniel. Reb Mordecai from Israel. Bob Finnegan, hi from Belfast. Welcome, Bob. Really nice to see you in. Nice to see you tonight. Adam Brudner is in as well from the States. Adam, good to see you. Jag is in. Marcus is in. That means Christina Kreitner is in tonight. How are you tonight, Christina? Everything okay? Brad Murphy is in. Jan Paul Vanderhoven. Malt Content. Malt Content, you're in Australia. You're saying howdy from Brisbane. nice to welcome you in, and it is very early in the morning for you. It's great that you can join us. Everyone is in. Ross Mashburn as well. Christina Zerpoli, fantastic, Christina, good to see you. Ryan Merritt, Rod Norton from Sheffield, welcome in, Rod. Tony Evans, Jason Malt Reviews in, Bronco Rog, the Whiskey Rev is also moderating tonight. Again, some backup for you. Those two guys are helping me out. Superb. Great to see so many of you in. Just wonderful. So I'm going to introduce you to my friend Ben, and I don't know. So many of you are going to know who Ben is, right? Ben is responsible for a super popular Instagram feed, and he is also now a brand ambassador for the SMWS. But if I bring Ben in now and say hello, I'll let him introduce himself. So Ben, if you are able to unmute yourself.
I have unmuted myself.
Hey, have you changed your audio? One moment.
Can you hear me?
A second, I need to fix the audio at my side, buddy.
Can you hear me now? How about now?
They can probably hear you. It's just that I can't.
You're having problems hearing me.
I've got you now.
All right, all right.
I've got you. So you remember that when I started, I was getting my own live feedback to me, so I muted the PC quickly, and that's why I wasn't hearing you. How are you, Ben? Good?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me, Roy.
You're very welcome. I was looking forward to it. As soon as we started to talk about this, there could have been like literally 20 topics that we could have covered. Almost difficult to choose a topic, right? Because of how much whiskey talk we get through in that meeting this year, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think when Roy and I met in Glasgow for the first time, just a couple months ago, I'm a fan of Roy, obviously, of your channel and so many of the the Whiskey Tube community in general. And so I just said, we should just do a hangout, of course, but it really took us a couple of months to sort through all these ideas of what are we going to talk about, but I think at the end of the day, we just said, we just want to hang out, and that's what's most important, and connect and just share our conversations with everybody who's watching today. So yeah, but I think Roy, you propose a great topic, one that's I'm very passionate about, but it really ties in nicely to our in-person meeting back in Scotland a couple of months ago.
That's right. I mean, the concept about tonight is kind of in the idea of you and I got to talk quite at length about the idea of a whiskey journey, how we all go through this journey, whatever it is. If I went through like a generic story that's pretty close to mine, it would probably resonate with a lot of people, and that is that you happen upon whiskey, you maybe don't connect with it immediately, you maybe have a bad experience, and then you come back to it later in life perhaps, and somebody introduces you to it, lets you understand it a little bit more. As time goes on, you go through all of these kind of beginner whiskies, you move on from the blends and the cheaper stuff into single malts, then you start to spend more and more on single malts, and then you discover independent bottles, and then from there you discover single cask with whiskies and cask strength whiskies, and it just kind of continues like that. And I think for most of us, and I think you agree with me here, Ben, for most of us on that whiskey journey, we can find ourselves in a situation where perhaps the only thing that we're engaging with is single casks, cask strength things, independent bottlings, and maybe we're guilty of forgetting those early stages in the whiskey journey sometimes. Would you agree?
I fully agree. I mean, I think that's just the not. I mean, to get caught up in our own passions or works, I think is to be human. And so for me, I mean, just as a Instagram or a blogger, however you want to call it, somebody who's just openly talking about whiskey on a daily basis, I'm constantly trying to I find myself as I get further down the rabbit hole, it's not quite as easy to pull yourself out and just be able to connect with what I think was the most beautiful moment of my whiskey journey, was kind of that moment of just taking the plunge initially and reminding myself of how little I knew, which I think which brings to the point of I still have so much to learn every day. But going back to that point, I think was such a beautiful period of discovery. And I'm not to say I'm not learning every day, I am, but there's so many people, and here in America especially, who have taken interest in malt whiskey in the last few years, and are really now at a really exciting point in which they're really kind of breaking off from, I think, just what's been marketed to them and take their own little journey of discovery. So, yeah, I agree.
I think what we've chosen tonight is I think we're going to share maybe 1 or 2 SMWS drams, but I think as a focal tonight, there's a kind of theme running through tonight with the Teapot Dram being at the end of the show. And obviously you and I had a chance to go and tour Glengoyne together, and we actually did the warehouse tour where we were able to draw our own whiskey from the cask, which was awesome, right? Mm-hmm. And yes, exactly. So if I just click onto you so that you can show them that bottle.
You want me to reveal? So just kind of a funny story. This was actually my first time visiting Scotland, which is kind of wild considering my life is consumed by whiskey. Whiskey consumes me more than I consume it. But I'd reached out to Roy. Obviously, we always talk about getting together if I were ever overseas. And I was in Glasgow. I'm not haven't been as familiar with Glengoyne, I have to admit, and I told Roy this. I've purchased very few bottles of Glengoyne in my life, but I was eager to see it. But it was, in fact, a bit of a time killer in terms of distillery visits amongst a week-long trip, which had me all around seeing dozens of different distilleries. But it turned out to be one of the more memorable ones. And so what we'll be tasting here is actually 2. I'll pull up both of them. This is the box from the #1 warehouse tour at Glengoyne. You're allowed to draw 2 samples, one typically from a bourbon cask and one from a sherry cask.
Right.
Do you want to kind of explain how it works? I'm happy to do it as well, but.
Yeah, I mean, well, what they did is they just gave you the standard Glengoyne tour first. And out of all the distilleries that I've visited Glengoyne more than any. I must be there like 3 or 4 times a year at least, I would say. But I still get something out of it every time, and I enjoy taking people to that distillery. And I was very excited about taking you there. So we did the standard tour first, but what happens after you've kind of been in to hear about how the different wood affects the whiskey and things like that, our particular tour, they lead you in behind the gates, don't they? And they then ask you to draw samples, just small pours, from a bourbon cask and a sherry cask. So you're drawing it with a valance, right? And you fill this little bottle, you take it back to the manager's house at Glengoyne, and you sit in a nice comfortable couch, and you taste the samples, and you decide which bottle you're going to fill to take home from the tour. I think you preferred or you selected the sherry cask that day, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that brings the point of why do I have 2 here? I don't know if you would open the bottle.
Yeah.
I don't know if you. I want to share this moment because I think you're a little too modest to openly say this yourself. But as with one ticket, the tour, you get to take home 20 cl bottle of the cask of your choice. So either the bourbon or the sherry cask. So after you have about 30 plus minutes to assess the whiskey, you get to choose. And so Roy and I were asking each other, what are you going to choose? What are you going to choose? And I'm partial to sherry cask. I think that my preference is changing a little bit, but both were beautiful. It was a hard choice to pick one. I picked the sherry cask. Roy said he was picking the bourbon, but he said he was picking the bourbon so that he can send the other one home with me back to the States. And so I actually have both here. And I brought this down if you guys didn't see this before, but the Scotch Test Dummies in Wichita, Kansas had their 5-year anniversary party. I brought this bourbon cask, 20 cl bottling, that Roy gifted me to share with the group. So the Scotch Test Dummies had this. I think a few guys from the Scotch 4 Dummies were there as well. So it's a beautiful moment. Glad to revisit them.
Well, I still have whiskey because you remember I was driving that day, right? Sure. And they were quite generous. I mean, these are probably larger than the tasting samples that we had. So I got this is the sherry cask sample still here. This is just a Glengoyne cask strength, and this is the bourbon cask one. So you tell me which one we're going to pour, and we'll get it poured into our glass. And I'll grab a couple of comments. I've just noticed my friend from Italy, Vittorio Legazza, is in. Fantastic to welcome you here, Vittorio. Vittorio is actually a colleague of mine. We work at the same company, and he's a huge whiskey fan as well. It's good to see you here, buddy. I hope you're still listening. Graham Smith is popping his head in for the first time in a taxi in a wet and windy Edinburgh. Fantastic to welcome you in, my friend. It's good to have you here, Graham. Gregor is saying, here's hoping you open and taste in the first hour, else I'll miss my breakfast here in China. Gregor, you're in China. Unfortunately, I'm going to be hanging out with Ben for the first little while, so I'm not sure when I'm going to get to that teapot dram. And I know, Gregor, that you've managed to order some for yourself, and you're keen to know what it's like. Which one are you pouring, Ben, by the way?
I think, to go in sequence, not to just recreate the moment, but start with the bourbon.
Start with the bourbon?
I think generally in that sequence probably makes some more sense. And just to point out, I just love, there's nothing like whiskey straight from the cask and all the char and sediment that's just sitting on the bottom of this bottle. It's really whiskey in purest sense.
That's right. That's right. And I think it's really nice at Glengoyne. It's really nice. But I think I do love when you have that opportunity to have that nice cold whiskey straight from the cask when you're standing in a damp dunnage warehouse. Obviously at Glengoyne, they take you back to the manager's house. If I always say, and I said to you just the other day, that the best whiskey you'll ever taste is a whiskey that you sip direct from a cask in a dunnage warehouse, right?
Yeah. I love just the experience of starting with a spirit that's so cold and not really ideal for nosing or tasting at that moment in time, but you do it anyway because you're thirsty and you were just on the tour, and so you can't wait for the whiskey to touch your lips. But warming the glass up with your hands. Now this is at room temperature for me now, but I love the evolution in the glass as just fighting the eagerness to just get right into it.
Absolutely, and I think when it's cold in the glass like that, when you've poured it in a warehouse, you get the mouthfeel, you get the weight of it, you get the texture, don't you? And then as you sip it, that cool temperature changes quite quickly to the warmth through the alcohol, because it's usually very high ABV when you're sipping that style of whiskey, of course. I mean, it smells fabulous, doesn't it? I mean, even if I wasn't choosing a bottle for you to take home, I honestly think I would have chosen the bourbon cask that day.
Yeah, so a bit about this particular cask, just for those who are watching. So this was distilled on December 2004, bottled September 12th, which is the date that we bottled it.
Yeah.
2018. So it's a 14-year-old first fill bourbon cask. Actually, no, doesn't specify. I believe it's a barrel. Yeah, it was a barrel.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
It was a barrel. It doesn't say. I mean, I should say you didn't write that down because this is your handwriting I'm reading here. So.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. You didn't specify whether it was a barrel or.
Does it have the ABV on there?
Yeah, and so it's 56.3% ABV. So 20 CL first fill bourbon. So I was just at the moment when we, again, you wonder, is it because I just left the warehouse and we're sitting here at Glengoyne and it's the first whiskey that we've approached? Does that influence how just the experience? Of course it does, but I just remember right away feeling, wow, this was just so lively and so tropical. That coconut note, I think, really stuck out to me. I
mean, I think I've talked about this at length in the past, that any environment affects the whiskey enjoyment. And if you're in an environment such as that, where you're literally standing in the place where the whiskey is made and you're getting to sip that whiskey straight from the cask, there's no chance it's going to be anything other than fantastic for a whiskey fan, because the cask has been selected. So the whiskey is going to be good. The environment has been built for you to enjoy it. It's just everything is like a perfect scenario. So for a whiskey fan, it's a wonderful opportunity. I think sometimes it's nice to have the serendipity of offerings and tastings. But what we did that day was at a very nice pace, I think. I think it was, we were able just to kind of relax on the couch for a while and decide which one we were going to buy. And then we went back again, of course, afterwards, sampled it, and we get to draw the full bottle by ourselves. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think it was one of the better tours at Glengoyne, and they're all pretty good tours. So that's the only thing you did right at Glengoyne.
I wonder, Roy, and we should mention, I'm sorry, yes, I didn't go back to Glengoyne to answer your question.
Yeah.
Roy was the designated driver. He was kind enough to drive and then also hand me his 20 CL bourbon barrel drawing. But we were with a group of 3 other people from Germany. Maybe watching it, because it's funny. We were together talking, and I introduced Roy, and one of the guys across from us said, "Oh yeah, I know. I love your recent videos." So he very well may.
Right.
Hello, friend, if you're watching. you were there with us as well.
That's right. That's right.
At home, so.
Because we were just kind of sitting on the couch, just hanging out, talking to those guys, and then they just said, yeah. I mean, it was near the end of the discussion, right? They mentioned that they knew the channel and things, and they watched the channel. That was kind of funny. It's quite cool as well.
He may be here right now, and if you are, good sir, reveal yourself. And I hope you have some of this left if you did in fact choose. Well, either of these, because we'll taste both. But that'd be quite funny if he was here.
Yeah, they might be here. And if they're not here, there's maybe a chance I'll see them at the Frankfurt Festival on Saturday. You never know. I'm heading over on Saturday. I'm getting lots of messages in here. Reb Mordecai's already asking me some controversial questions about if we took 3 casks, blended them together, poured them into a single cask before bottling, would that be considered a single cask? Yes, there's lots of grey areas there, Reb, and I get exactly what you're getting at there. Let's see what else. The Whiskey Rev is saying, Roy and I walked from Glasgow to Glengoyne once, and then on to Loch Lomond. Fabulous day. It was a fabulous day. And can I admit something, Rev? We'd left Glengoyne and we were walking the last stage of the walk, this first part of the West Highland Way from Glengoyne to Loch Lomond. And we'd bought a souvenir whiskey from the shop. And as we were walking along, we realised that we couldn't sip out the bottle. That wouldn't look that great. But we also, from the tour, had souvenir Glencairn glasses. And as we walked the West Highland Way, we're walking along with a Glengoyne in the glass. That was a great day, Rev. Absolutely.
That's fun.
See if there's any questions here. Cask Mate is saying, could you ask Ben what is his favourite cask strength whiskey at the moment? That's a question from Cask Mate Ben. What's your favourite? So I guess you're drinking a lot of cask strength whiskies right now with your position at SMWS, right?
Yeah, most of the whiskey I do drink is in fact cask strength. I mean, everything you see behind me here is all. I'm in the office right now, so I have about 100 bottles of cask strength whiskey, all unique cask here. Picking a favorite is impossible, but I will pick one for the sake of just being decisive. This is actually an old bottle, and this came out before I was working for the society, but I was just a member. This is cask number 35.179. You can see it's the old bottling, old bottle design.
So 35, that's either Glen Murray or Glen Elgin.
Correct, yeah.
Glen Murray?
Yep. And so this is 13 years in a first fill Chenin Blanc hogshead. It's still 2003, so 54.3%. I appreciate this whiskey. One, I quite like white wine casks. Not with all, but I think with this particular spirit at this age, it's just such a beautiful whiskey. Really,
what's the name of it again?
35.179 Formula Flavor.
What have they called it?
Formula Flavor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Some of the SMWS bottles get really quite whimsical, don't they?
They do. But what I appreciate about this one, like so many of these here, is the value. This was, I think, in US dollars, maybe $125. And I'm sitting here saying it's one of the better casks I've ever had in my life. For me, for my personal palate. So I was obviously a little bummed I couldn't get more of it. It had already sold out when I discovered that I love it. But
it's quite interesting there. And we realized, I think, Ben, that when we discussed talking about this subject of single cask whiskies and kind of on the back of enjoying cask strength style whiskies, that what happens is that we all love to talk about sharing whiskey. I mean, it's pretty much what this channel is founded upon, is that the concept of sharing it. But if you imagine, if you're sitting, if the Rev and I, or if I'm sitting in the room with a friend and we share that whiskey, that's no problem. But through these different technology platforms that we're sharing whiskey on nowadays, the more granular you get whiskey-wise, i.e. Special editions, independent bottlers, or single cask, the more difficult it is for us both to be sipping the same whiskey at the same time. Do you think that detracts at all from the experience, or do you think there's still the ability to kind of enjoy sharing it? Do you think you can still have that shared experience? Because we were actually very lucky when we were looking at the SMWS bottles that we both had, that we managed to find one or two that overlapped, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point. And right in this virtual world we now live in, I mean, this fact that we have such a great group here this evening or this afternoon, if you're me, but coming together, it very much feels like we're in the same room. And I've had the chance to meet a lot of our viewers tonight, and the boundaries I think are no longer really there. And so to your question of, if you can't share the same whiskey, are you really having the same shared experience? Yes and no. I mean, I think on one hand, I think the beauty of single cask whiskey, to me, I think it just speaks to how I view whiskey. In one way, whiskey connects people. It is a natural vehicle for connecting other people around the world.
Absolutely.
But on the other hand, I really do appreciate the very personal element of whiskey. I think there's nothing, I shouldn't say nothing more exciting, but one of the most exciting things about whiskey to me, particularly with single cask and all these whiskeys here, is finding one that is really in tune to your palate. Every palate is different, and you and I might be tasting the same whiskey as we are right now. We're not exactly tasting the same flavors to begin with. It is the same whiskey, but I think I do appreciate the element of single cask whiskey that is a personal, tailored approach. Finding something that, as I just said, I said, wow, this is a whiskey, and look, this is one of my favorite whiskeys, and it's only a third. It's 2/3 of the bottles left because I'm cherishing it. I know it's so personal.
Yeah, because that's the difficulty, is that you know how tough it's going to be to replace, right?
Yeah, and so again, as I mentioned earlier, I was really disappointed at first when I realized I couldn't get any, but then I think that's just it just strengthens the relationship between myself and the spirit. So I think it's a give in a way. I didn't really.
I've got a really good question actually from Adam Brudner here. Adam's asked, question for Ben: what are some less appreciated distilleries that really shine as SMWS releases?
Well, I think that's the beauty of SMWS is that, well, especially here in the States, because we don't have access to spirit from the same distilleries that, of course, you do in the motherland of Scotland. So SMWS is a bridge, or gateway, I should say, into some of these other distilleries. I just got something from Glengoyne, which I'm pretty excited about. We have a bit from Tobermory, Lacheg, from the Isle of Mull, which I think is, of course, when we release, we don't put the name of the distilleries on the bottlings because we have this belief, and I believe this as well, that when it comes to single cask whiskey, we want to let the whiskey do the talking, so not to judge it by its distiller. Also, because a lot of these casks are a bit atypical compared to the distillery's house style. But some of those, I think, Glengoyne, and maybe even not just the distilleries that are not on the map, but maybe some distilleries that are owned by large conglomerates that do not offer the consumer a chance to experience the spirit in its more natural state. I think a lot of people, I see you smiling about this, Roy. I mean, there are a lot of this.
Yeah, I mean, you're just, because you took the words out of my mouth there and you said it in a way more diplomatic way than perhaps I was just about to. But especially when you mentioned Glengoyne, I mean, Glengoyne is a wonderful whiskey, but we don't really get to experience how wonderful it is unless it's through the presentation of an independent bottler such as SMWS. There are other distilleries as well from the same portfolio, such as Linkwood and Dalhuan and Benrinnes, and all of those, I think, sparkle and shine under SMWS presentation, and other independent bottlers as well. And those are kind of otherwise, if it wasn't for those, we'd never get a chance to experience those whiskies, right?
And think about even the distilleries that are in their own right, these global brands recognized even amongst the casual whiskey drinkers. Bowmore, for instance. I mean, Bowmore is one that I think, quite frankly, their independent bottlings, I think, far exceed, there's distillery bottlings, and I'll just say that, not because we bottled it, but I think that's the truth. And I think because they don't offer much in its true cask strength, state. So I just kind of took the question. My answer has gone beyond the question now, but.
Well, in my experience as well, Adam, the Rev has had a couple of Arran SMWS that have been fabulous. I've got a Benrinnes that I particularly love. There's a Dalhuan downstairs that it's just, I shared this with Ben just the other day when we spoke. It's so good. Dalhuan is 41, I think, is the number. 4188, this bottle is. It's called Champagne of the North. And I can understand why they got the champagne thing, because it's effervescent on the palate. It's just wonderful. Now, I'm not suggesting that it's representative of Dillion, actually, but it's just that what Ben's talking about, that really individual, unique experience of that single cask. But there is a bit of heartache with it, because, as Ben has suggested, trying to replace it is going to be difficult. I'm going to just quickly give a shout out to Kieran May, who's sent across a virtual dram to me. Thank you so much, Kieran. And he's saying, loving the show. Hi to Ben. That's from Kieran May. And also my friend Andrew from down south, Day Dramming, has sent a virtual dram as well. And he's saying the working day beckons down under, Roy. Of course, it's early hours of Friday down there already. Have a great show. We'll catch the replay later this evening with a cask strength dram or two, Andrew. Andrew, go ahead and enjoy your working day and enjoy St. Andrew's Day, my friend. And thank you very, very much for your virtual dram. I'd also like to say happy birthday to another friend of mine, another Andrew from down south, Prestige Liquids. I hope that he's in tonight, because I know it's his birthday today. He's also Andrew from Australia on St. Andrew's Day, his birthday. Happy birthday, my friend. And I didn't miss the virtual dram just before I went live. Amy, who's normally in drumming up the thumbs up and the likes on these live streams, she left a virtual dram, but she's feeling a little poorly. Amy, thank you so much for your dram that you sent across to me, and I hope that you're feeling a wee bit better soon. So let's see if I've got any other questions for you, Ben, just quickly. Malt Chronicles is saying this must have been asked before, but would it be worth signing up with SMWS if you live in the Netherlands? So not enjoying club nights, etc., just the bottlings. Now that's actually relevant to you as well, Ben. I know that you're not in charge of anywhere in Europe. You're in the States. You're in SMWS America, but you've got the same issue where you're probably having to look at partner bars to have that kind of out of the house experience with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the same with every country outside of the UK. You know, I think the UK is the only, now with some exceptions, but really our core members rooms, we just opened a new one in London. So now we have 2 in London and 2 in Edinburgh, the Vaults and the one on Queen Street. Outside of the UK, that you know, with 19 other countries, essentially that is the case. And so in the I can speak to the US. I'm not as familiar with the Netherlands and the chapter there, but you know, the society experience in the US is a bit different. Of course, I will say this: a lot of American whiskey drinkers whiskey drinkers in America do travel to the UK often. So a lot of our members are frequently traveling to the UK. Not all of them, but
yeah. And I guess that's one of the highlights of the trip then, because they get to go along to the Vaults or you know, Queen Street or something in Edinburgh, or perhaps in London, right?
Yeah. So I do get a lot of calls every day from whiskey enthusiasts in America who say, "Hey, I'm going over to Edinburgh, you know, next week. I'm familiar with the society. I've had some of their whiskey from friends. I'd like to become a member to go access the club." And so there's that element. But really, you know, here in the States, we've grown quite a bit in terms of the number of casks. It used to be we were only offering about 3 to 4. A few years ago, we had about 3 to 4 whiskeys a month, and now we're up to about 25. And so, you know, we do tasting events all around the country, and I think that's the core thing we do. Is, you know, the U.S. is obviously, the geographic footprint's a lot larger, so we're traveling a lot more frequently, but we're always around the country hosting events. And so these are member gathering events, and we'll preview the casks before they come out with the outturn the following month. So usually a few days before, it's a chance to taste the whiskey. So it's kind of a traveling road show, if you will, that we do. We do have some bars that sell some of our whiskey. At this stage right now, with the society in the US, the interest and enthusiasm has amplified quite a bit. So it's not the same as in the UK, where you can go to the bar or the pub and try one of the casks and then go out and purchase it.
Right.
I mean, right. We try to, the bars that carry our whiskey are just like other members. So they're just supplying it to their patrons. But really, it's the direct to the member shipping model that works best. But really, I think part of it is part of what I do too. I sit in this office, and we get phone calls from members all around the country who are just asking for recommendations. So it's more of having this one-on-one conversation, understanding what they like, and then making a recommendation based on the personal palate. So that's a unique differentiator.
I think it is. I think it's a good point you make. And I think there's another one that I would add, and it's kind of touching on what you're saying there, is that, you know, any independent bottler out there that's bottling regular casks, and what they would tend to be doing is they would be releasing them through their distribution supply chain, whatever their retail supply chain. And you would either happen upon them or you would miss them. That's pretty much the nature of single cask whiskies, right? But what the SMWS does, and I think this is quite nice and it's overlooked a little bit, you do pay a membership for it. So this isn't a disposable thing, but it's worth thinking about. It's you pay a membership, but every month you get a curated list of whiskies, and you can sit and you can go through that list and consider what kind of attracts your attention, what you think is good value, and you can buy it online. In the UK, certainly shipping is free. It's a very easy experience, and that's not the same as what you would expect from other independent bottlers. And I think that's worth pointing out. If you're the type that you can't get along to the partner bars and you like just kind of browsing online and buying online, I think it's quite valuable from that perspective.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would agree.
No, I do agree. I think it's always great to taste the whiskey before you buy. I mean, that is the norm. You know, most of us will taste the whiskey, but there is, I do, I'm not trying to, it's funny because I'm not just trying to say this because obviously I work for the brand, but I also enjoy tasting a whiskey with little expectations and falling in love with something. You know, because too often when I buy something, I will set expectations, but sometimes it just, you know, say I'm going to trust the recommendations of somebody who knows my palate, who knows me. They taste it and say, you know what, that's fantastic. Or sometimes maybe, you know, they don't love it or they know it'll be a good whiskey, but so I don't know. I'm just trying to make a case for trying things and discovering things, you know, going on a limb and putting yourself out there. I think sometimes those can provide some very rewarding whiskey moments.
I have to be honest, there was a night that the Whiskey Rev and I were sat in my front room and we were going through a lot of SMWS and other kind of cask strength and single cask whiskies. And as we were sipping the SMWS bottles, I remember him turning to me and saying that he's never tasted anything bad from SMWS. And I have to say that's still, I know that if you were around long enough, you might taste something that's not to your palate. But I think also the selection process that SMWS go through as well is something worth touching on. You know, the fact that they actually have a tasting panel, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's unique about it too. It's this tasting panel, you know, in Edinburgh, which is for blind tasting. We have about 10,000 casks right now under ownership, maturing in Scotland, and
2,000 casks.
No, about 10,000. About 10,000.
SMWS.
Yeah. But I want to say about 9 in the Dunnage warehouse, and then another 1,000 scattered around. But so I mean, we have enough whiskey, we have enough casks to bottle for the next 30-something years if we stop buying any. But you know, it's sorry, I've lost my train of thought. I was just imagining.
That's okay. I've lost mine as well because I just took it.
10,000 casks. I just for a moment. What were we even talking? What was the question? It's so embarrassing. But I was just thinking these 10,000 casks when I said it. The tasting panel. I'm sorry, guys.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, they're blind taste testing hundreds of whiskeys a month, not knowing the age, the distillery, of course, the cask type, making an honest assessment, and they're pretty strict about it. I mean, they only allow so many to pass, you know, and so. The whole point of the tasting panel is to provide assurance that if it bears a society logo, it goes into the bottle, it's of a certain quality. Now, I think also to your point about, you know, suiting specific palates, we really made a point to broaden the range of flavors and styles that's offered by the society. So we're bottling, you know, younger whiskey than I think before. We're experimenting with different cask types. So I think for some people, they might confuse what's not a good whiskey for something that's really extremely not to their palate. But generally, the idea is that if you want to take a risk and try something so unique with little information out there about it from other experts such as yourself, Roy, there's some assurance there through that tasting panel process that it's going to be a great whiskey, you know?
Yeah.
By design.
I always feel a degree of comfort, and that's based on my experience, that I will go online and I will just kind of blindly buy bottles that take my fancy from SMWS. I would say that 50% of the bottles I have downstairs are bought blind, and 50% are bought after drams that I've tried in Edinburgh. And I think that I have yet to have one that wasn't up to scratch, I would say. You know, there have been some that have been better than others. Some have been absolutely fantastic, but I've never had a real bad experience. The most recent one I bought, you haven't even seen this one yet, have you?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
this is very cool. I hope the camera can see this. This is obviously a kind of retro style label. So the new labels look a bit more like this. This is the kind of new style of labels where they've gone kind of down the color coding route to suggest flavor profiles and marry it up with color. But these were the old style labels that just had the huge logo and the details here with the bottle number here. But this is called paddle steaming, and this is brought out. I still don't understand why this exists, but I bought this and it arrived this week. This is an 11-year-old 135.11, which is 135 is Loch Lomond. And I think this is a peated Loch Lomond, so 135 is one of their peated expressions, and .11 is the 11th cask that they've released. But for some reason, they've chosen to put it in this very cool retro bottle. I just want to mention quickly that I've had another couple of virtual drams in from my friends. Carl Van Wallingham has said, enjoy this virtual dram, Roy. Hopefully someday we can share a dram of Balblair 69. For Balblair 69, Carl, I'll come to you. Fantastic. Keep up the evangelism. Thank you, Carl. You're a superstar. Thank you so much for that virtual dram. And I think also there was another one, and from my friend Whisky Throttle. He's been a member for about 6 years and he loves SMWS. Well, that's good because Daniel's out there in Alberta, so it's quite good to get that referral from Daniel as well, or that kind of that kind of heads up. And what I will say as well, Daniel, is that you were asking about the guy in the Netherlands that asked. It's actually, he's on Instagram as Malt Chronicles. So Bart, your Malt Chronicles, Whisky Throttle is on Instagram as Whisky for My Motorcycle. So the two of you can hook up and discuss SMWS until your heart's content. What I would say though, Ben, is just what popped into my head as we were chatting. I started tonight with something that is at the opposite end of the scale. And kind of going back to what we touched on earlier, do you find sometimes that you spend so much of your time in single cask or cask strength territory that you sometimes pick up a 40% ABV whiskey thinking, oh, well, this is going to be like water, only to be surprised by how lovely it can be?
43% perhaps. No, just kidding. I mean, there is a difference. I mean, for me, I think there's a time and place. First of all, I think there's a time and place for most whiskeys. I think there's, to me, I love the individuality of single cask whiskey. And I should just make a point. I was so passionate about it that it was I who phoned up the society here in the States and said, I really want to just join you and help you kind of evangelize this organization. So it wasn't that I was recruited for a job or anything. I kind of created this position and just out of love for single cask whiskey. Yeah. So that is I just preface that because I know it. There's nothing worse than hearing somebody say something honest that is perceived as being just because it's a shameless plug. But more recently, working within the society and being around single casks, of course, you always want things that are different. And so I find more value perhaps now than I did a couple of years ago in going home and just having a relaxing dram. Sometimes if it's socially, not having to think too much about it. I mean, here I have my Scotch Test Dummies water dropper, which I have something like this or a pitcher on me at all times, but I do appreciate the convenience at times of just getting home, pouring a dram. It's nice, it's effortless. Maybe more often than me just being alone, it's a social dram too. And so,
well, I think that's exactly my point, is that you can spend so much time chasing for the next epiphany that you're looking at cask strength stuff, you're looking at single cask whiskies, and you're looking for that character in the whiskey. And every single whiskey that's over your shoulder there, Ben, all of those cask strength SMWS expressions are probably event whiskies. They're whiskies that you're going to sit there and you're going to analyze and you're going to spend the time in the whiskey, in the moment, in the glass. And as you mentioned there, sometimes it's a social situation, or sometimes you're just trying to relax and unwind. And you just want something that kind of helps that happen rather than a whiskey that necessarily is going to command all your attention. Maybe you've got company, maybe you're in a social situation, maybe you just want to sip the whiskey and watch TV and not think about it. And I think that if we spend too much time chasing those epiphanies, too much time chasing down the single casks and things, we can forget that there are some nice whiskey experiences and forget how important they were to us back at the start of our whiskey journey. There's an element of snobbishness can creep in, I think.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to. I mean, I've when I was a few years ago really getting into. I mean, I've been enjoying malt whiskey for much longer than 3 years, but 3 years ago I was really getting really serious about it and started the Single Malt Alliance. And
this sounds like a cool story. Step a wee bit closer to the mic.
No, it was when I started the Single Malt Alliance a few years ago. It was after about a year of really being serious about exploring malt whiskey, and at the time I was falling in love with particular malts, and I was buying up multiple bottles because I thought they might be going away. I heard they would be going away, and now I have a closet full of quite a few whiskeys that I've kind of neglected because I've moved on, and I quickly, a few months later, realized, yeah, that's not
right.
But yeah, I don't know, Roy. I don't really know the answer. Do I check myself? Do I just accept that we move on from certain things, or do I continue to try to remind myself of where I came from? You know, I don't know.
I don't think you can force it. But what's going to happen, Ben, is that you're going to be sitting in a hotel somewhere, and they don't have SMWS. They don't have single cask. They don't even have a cask strength anything. They've got a limited selection of single malts. Now, I say that because I started off tonight wondering what to have to kind of calibrate things and set my palate. And I reached for this, which is a younger Glengoyne. This is a 14-year-old Glengoyne, which is a supermarket exclusive for Marks and Spencer's here in the UK. So 14-year-old isn't standard it's not part of the Glengoyne core range. And as I was setting up here, I started to sip this whiskey. And people say that what you should look for in Glengoyne is leather. And I've never really got that before. I've never even felt confident about bringing that up before.
Mm-hmm.
But the first sip, I wasn't paying any attention even to it tonight. I tasted a leathery note from this. And the shocking thing is that this is a 40% ABV bottling. This is a price point whiskey through supermarkets. And that's what I'm talking. Okay, that was my starter tonight. I dare say if I went back to it now, it's going to taste quite watered down compared to the cask strength ex-bourbon Glengoyne that we've just had. But it took me by surprise, and I thoroughly enjoyed sipping that dram while I was setting up for tonight. And I think that's my point, not to let the kind of chasing that dream whiskey get in the way of those whiskies that set you on your path. Yeah. Way back at the start of your journey. That's kind of what I'm getting to.
So speaking of, in the interest of time, I know we have I personally have less than about 15 minutes. I do want to get to the next Glengoyne, if you don't mind, which is this one. I'm going to go ahead. I took the liberty of pouring myself a dram. I haven't tasted this yet.
Is that the sherry cask?
Yeah. Do you have
let's pour it. Let's pour it. And as you're pouring it, I'll give a shout out to Dundee Drammer, who's bought me a virtual dram. And he's saying, first evening joining you for virtual pub, Roy. Excellent job and love your videos. Enjoy your dram. Richard, thank you so much. And it's nice to welcome you in here. And thank you so much for the virtual dram. Delicious. And I'm sipping, I'm going to finish this dram I had earlier. This is the 14-year-old in my Scotch Test Dummies glass. I've also got one of the Scotch Test Dummies droppers as well. I bought one of those when I was over in the States. What's really funny about that is that they're made here and obviously shipped over to the States, and I actually bought mine when I was over there. Actually, I got gifted it by Scott and Bart. I also got a virtual dram in from a friend from Scotch for Dummies, Drew Bills. I'll just mention to you while you're in here tonight that later on tonight, if you're on the time zone, they go out live on a Thursday night as well. So the guys at Scotch for Dummies, Mark, Andrew, Drew and Sean go live on a Thursday night. I think it's about 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning for us. But if you're on the States time zone, you can pick those guys up. And also Jason from the Mash and Drum has said, cheers, Roy, whiskey evangelism at its best. Thank you so much, Jason. Jason's also another peer, another YouTuber out there doing fantastic stuff on his channel as well. Jason, Drew, and what was your name? Dundee Drammer. It was Richard. Thank you so much. Cheers to you all. Right, so you've already poured the sherry cask, right?
I have. So a funny moment after you've tasted the bourbon barrel at Glengoyne, this was when we were sampling the two casks. I think I made a comment to you, Roy, about just without even tasting this one to come. I said, okay, this is the one for me. We again, just to not to debrief on it for those who are here earlier, but at Glengoyne, they give you the choice of choosing which of the two 20 CL bottles you want to bring home. based on your preference of the two drams that you draw at first. So I made the point about the bourbon barrel saying, this is absolutely the one for me. And in that moment, I brought this sherry cask up to my nose and said, oh, wait, never mind. Give me a second. The decision was quite difficult. So this is, I'll just point it out. So I have the bottle here in the label. First fill Oloroso Sherry Puncheon, 2002. Yeah, 5th of June, 2002, September 12th, 2018. So about 16 years and a few months. Bottled at 60.1%.
60.1.
Yeah.
So decent ABV. Another thing, while we're on the subject of single cask and cask strength whiskies, well, not so much cask strength, differently, but let's stick to single cask now as well. And it's not because I'm trying to make them seem less than they are, because they really are where I am at in whiskey. And when I get a chance to sip single cask and when I'm enjoying cask strength whiskey, and it's very much part of your whiskey journey, that you start to enjoy higher ABVs. And it brings so much grip and texture and added layers of flavor and so much flexibility in the whiskey. But another thing that I'll say is that with single cask, what you tend to, it's very, very granular, and you get to taste a very unique experience from a specific distillery. With a single malt, you get to experience multiple casks that have been put together to try and represent that distillery, theoretically anyway, as best as it possibly can. So there is an argument to say that maybe vatted casks from a distillery can be much more engaging and complex. Would you say yes or no to that?
Well, I think in terms of complexity, yeah. I mean, I think if you have multiple casks, I think naturally, yeah, they will add multiple layers, and each will bring different flavors to the picture. So in terms of complexity, yeah, I mean, there's some single casks that on their own will impart wonderful complexity. But if you're looking for that, I think it's an unfair advantage for a bad cask to obviously have more depth of flavor. Again, there are of course exceptions for some fantastic.
Yeah, I'm just trying to play a little bit of devil's advocate, just to kind of send that message home, to suggest that, you know, single cask whiskies and single cask experiences are wonderful, but it's not the be all and end all. And there are things that can be better about vatted cask. The Teapot Dram I'm going to have is fairly unique, because that's only, this particular batch 6 is only 6 casks that are vatted together. But so many of the even non-single cask independent bottlings and things like that are a vatting of just a very, very few casks, just to bring in that extra kind of different layers and dynamics and things. So, you know, I think that's a valid point as well, to remember that you know, these and you can go further down, you can go further from that kind of granular level, you can go further up, back in time out through the whiskey journey, if you imagine, and even back to the times when you were drinking blends, and imagine that these blends have been created in a very specific way. And obviously, most of them are created for a price point, of course, but not all of them. And they are put together, you know, to bring as much as possible, I guess, from as much of the portfolio that's available to that producer. You know, I'm just kind of throwing that out there because I think it's, as we're sipping a single cask, we forget the uniqueness, I think, of what we're doing sometimes, and the fact that it can never be replicated. It's a very unique experience. But, you know, all the whiskies that we've been enjoying up to that time has their place as well.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, why do I enjoy single cask whiskey? You know, I think people appreciate whiskey for different reasons, and so for me, single cask whiskey, in principle, allows me to experience a spirit that's more connected with the production of the whiskey itself. I mean, when you eliminate other casks, you just narrow it down, and you can really get a better sense for, I think, the grain, the fermentation. I mean, everything about the production of the whiskey, it's easier to discern within a single cask. But when you start vatting casks or blending casks together, or even different, and whether the same cask type, but just different casks, of course, or different cask types to begin with, you then you start building something that offers a more, I think, a complex sensory experience. I think most whiskey drinkers I mean, I think an overwhelming majority of whiskey drinkers, and perhaps I'm just speaking to here in the States, but I think when people pick up a malt whiskey, they're looking for a sensory experience, something with a beginning, a middle, and end. And that in their minds is the definition of what a premium whiskey is. I don't think many people are really out there looking for, I want to taste the difference between 72 hours of fermentation period versus 68, like me. But so I think there's value in both. One's not better than the other, but just knowing, the value and the art behind one, I think being the more natural art of the production, and two, then the art of the human element of blending these casks together to create something unique. Just both can be appreciated for different reasons.
Absolutely, that's a great point. The fact that oftentimes the vatted or the blended whiskies have that human element in there, which of course single casks don't. But you've made the point exactly there, just to suggest that both or all of it they all have their time and place. I mean, I would hate to be evangelizing about whiskies that's very exclusive for most people all the time. And a lot of the whiskies that we're talking about can be more difficult for people to get their hands on. So you don't want to invalidate the wonderful experiences they're having with their Aberlour 12s or their Aberlour Abunas, even for a cask strength version, or whatever the whiskies that they can get on hand. There's still lots of wonderful whiskey experiences out there, and lots of sensory experiences, as you put it, available off the shelf as well. However, be warned, when you do end up in the territory of cask strength whiskies and enjoying single cask experiences, it does become addictive.
I just want to, on that note, I just want to make a comment. We haven't talked. This is fantastic. This is. I think this is. I mean, it's a first fill sherry puncheon, but I think it's quite balanced. I mean, obviously the sherry presence is there. It's the definitive sherry bomb, but that Glengoyne character, you're just going from that bourbon barrel, which I think it's easier to really taste the spirit in lighter American oak, but that spirit seems to really shine through it. It holds up against this first fill sherry puncheon quite well. I think it's just a harmonious whiskey. Really, I haven't tasted this since we had it together at Glengoyne. This is the first time. So equally.
And what's interesting is the Teapot Dram is made up of these very casks. What's the age on that one again? You mentioned earlier.
16 years.
Sorry.
16.
16. Wow. So this is quite a bit older than what would make up the Teapot Dram. John Paul Vanderhoven's got a question, and he's sent across a virtual dram. Thank you, John Paul. He's saying, hi Roy and Ben. How high can ABV be? What is still drinkable? So I've got an answer for that, but I'll throw that across to you, Ben, as well. How high can ABV be and still be drinkable?
Well, I think, I'll take the latter part first, and I'll let you get into the technical aspects of like filling casks. But I just think be mindful of people who I think are in the audience who are of all levels of interest and familiarity with whiskey. It's a very simple trick when it comes to approaching cask strength whiskey, especially here in the States. I think people are a bit newer to the idea of whiskey. So in America, we have this idea that we should always drink whiskey at cask strength, first of all. And what we're doing here is adding a bit of water. And so in terms of what's drinkable, I think it depends on the palate. But what I always like to do is taste the whiskey first at cask strength, whatever that might be, and then add a bit of water to adjust it to your own drinkability. So again, I don't know if that's exactly the origin of the question, but I have a lot of friends and a lot of people I meet every day who think they have to drink it as it's bottled. But really, I think
it's one of the biggest myths. You don't often hear that statement. Just people say, I drink it the way it comes out the bottle because that's the way the distiller intended, which is nonsense. But unfortunately, that's where we all have to kind of work together to let people understand that that's not what the idea is. If I look at John Paul's question, I think the highest I've ever sipped, I think, would be new make from Auchentoshan, which was very high. That was up close to 80 or around 80%. But I wouldn't suggest that that's necessarily drinkable. That was just literally something that that touched my lips just to give me a concept of what that could be. I wouldn't suggest that that's drinkable. In terms of drinkable, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof is probably the strongest thing I have in the cabinet. It's 69.7% ABV. That's drinkable neat, believe it or not, and I'm shocked that that's the case, but it is. I never imagined that I would be at that stage in my whiskey journey that I would be sipping something of that strength neat, but it's actually enjoyable. I've also got a Glenrothes single cask downstairs at 66.8% ABV from obviously a sherry cask. 66.8, it's very drinkable at that strength. I think it depends very much, as Ben says, on palate. It depends on where you are in your whiskey journey, but it also depends heavily on the whiskey itself. I don't know if you'd agree. What's the strongest that you have there? I mean, there must be SMWS bottlings that get up to 65% and beyond, right? I think both of us have a Highland Park, right?
Oh yeah. We both have that. Yeah, I have a few here. 65.2%.
Yeah, this Highland Park is. You've got this one as well. 4.230. It's 65.2. Yeah.
Yeah. 65. Yeah, there's some 64s. Some big sherry butts that are about 63, 64. Quite a few of those. These Glenrothes casks that really get up there.
Yeah, and I think that's because they're filling the expensive, valuable sherry casks at still strength. You know, they're not adding any demineralized water at the cask fill point, so because they don't want to put water in these really valuable casks, right?
Yeah. This is just fantastic, though. This one.
Malt Review Jason is in tonight. Hey, Jason. And I know you guys know each other as well, Ben. He's saying about 70% ABV for him. And I think that's a reasonable answer as well. Connor Strang is saying 72% is the highest he's had.
Yeah.
Auchentoshan New Make, Red Mordecai is saying is 81% ABV out the still. Yes. And I have to be honest with you, you know, while it's because it's triple distilled, it's at 81% ABV. I'm not going to suggest that Auchentoshan New Make is drinkable.
Yeah, I think Jason's a big fan of Octomore, so I know some of those can be bottled, obviously not single cask, but the body likes to bottle those at about 64, 63% perhaps. So
yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I would say that water is your friend with cask strength whiskies, not just to make it drinkable, but to reveal layers, more and more layers. The more you explore it with drops of water, the whiskey can shapeshift in the same glass, right, as you just continue to add water. And I don't mind giving up a couple of drams, killing it, drowning it, just by adding more and more and more until I've added too much, because you'll only do it once, and you kind of know where the sweet spot of the whiskey is at that point. Rob over in Canada, my friend Whiskey in the Six, he's saying, hello, Roy, and all the whiskey friends. Miss you all. Cheers. Missing you too, Rob, but you're still very much around. Don't go too far away, and thank you so much for dropping in. Rob has also suggested that him and I do a collaboration at some point over the coming weeks, and he's talking about sending me over some. It's actually Glengoyne. It's very fitting to bring it up tonight. He's sending me over some Glengoyne 30 to enjoy in a collaboration.
You tried to put that bottle over at the distillery and they were sold out. Remember that?
I tried to get Glengoyne 30, right? And, you know, I'm okay with that. It's, you know, there wasn't any left when we were there that day. But the money that I didn't spend on Glengoyne has been very, very well spent on lots and lots of other whiskies where I've been able to buy multiple bottles instead of just one Glengoyne 30 that maybe I might have been nervous to open, right?
Well, Roy, I hate to do this. I know we're past the hour. I have to head out in a moment, but
yeah,
which is horrible because an hour went by as we predicted it would, and I just want to drink more whiskey with everybody here.
So we haven't even sipped an SMWS one tonight yet.
Let's do a final send off real quick.
Yeah. I tell you what, I'll pour this this Highland Park.
Okay.
This is 4.230, which is called Sweet and Salty Smoke and Ash. It's a 12-year-old from a refill sherry puncheon.
I'm going to pour a different one. I know we talked about the idea of I do have that bottle as well.
Well, it's up to you. You can maybe pour one of your 35, your Glen Murray.
I'm going to pour something a little different. And I do have a couple minutes, and really that's the most. So there'll be a very quick, small, as you would call it, a wee dram. I would call it a small dram. But this is Cask 27.111.
Oh.
Cold bucket of marshmallows. 22 years old from a refill, like Sherry Hogshead. Called at 48.8%. Does anyone know what 27 is? You know what it is?
That's obviously cask strength at that 48%, right?
Yeah.
Being SMWS. So where's that from?
Springbank.
A Springbank.
Yeah.
That's pretty rare.
Yeah, we don't disclose the distillery, but I mean, it was just a matter of time before everybody.
Well, I mean, yes, you're right. It's not policy to do that, but a quick Google will certainly tell us who it is.
Yeah, so Jason, if you're still on, Jason and I, we got together we were at the Vaults at the Queen Street venue in Edinburgh, and we had another springbank that we're actually about to release in the US, which is a follow-up. It's a 21-year and a first fill sherry, and maybe perhaps someone in the audience has had both, but this one I think is also fantastic. In a refill sherry, but I think more that distillery character has really come through. Absolutely fantastic. These springbank is quite pricey these days, whether it's from independent or from distillery, and at least when
I'm a little bit jealous. I have to be honest. I'm quite jealous of that one.
Well, I can I'll pour a sample and ship it overseas, but
well, here we go. Let's raise a glass before you disappear.
all right.
Just to say that it was an absolute pleasure this year, Ben. I know that we talk about, the whiskey fabric, weaving a stitch at a time, but we demonstrated that. It was great to have that opportunity to meet up. It was great to be able to tour Glengoyne and have that experience together. But what's endured is a friendship that I'm very, very grateful for. So, Sláinte, my friend.
Sláinte, Roy. It's a pleasure. And everybody who tuned in, thank you for allowing me to be here as a guest.
Just before I let you go off the hook, I'm going to just check to see if anybody has threw in a question to you. I think if they have, it was a while back, so it's perhaps been missed. But let's in case there are any questions that are ongoing, just let people know, Ben, how people can get in touch with you, because you are super communicative. I'm quite amazed how you're able to keep up with just the amount of traffic that comes through Instagram as well as the SMWS thing, right?
Yeah, I'm amazed as well. But yeah, so I'm on Instagram as Single Malt Alliance. I know many of you, I think you might be connected already. If you're not, it'd be great. Shoot me a message. I try to respond to everyone as best I can. Otherwise, if you're in the US and you're SMWS member, my email address is ben@smwsaforamerica.com. Again, I know I've met quite a few in the group, both down in Kansas at the Scotch Testimony's anniversary party and beyond that. So yeah, listen, always love to talk about whiskey. If you ever need any recommendations from SMWS, you want to ask me personally, love to have the conversation. That's literally what I do every day. So it's not a bother. That is what I'm here for. Or anything else. I just, again, it's my number one passion at this point. It has been for a while. So always eager to share a virtual dram or to talk about whiskey. So thank you, Roy. It's really been a pleasure. I mean, your sentiment is mine as well. So it was a great time together, and I don't doubt that I'll be back very soon. So
the pleasure's always mine, Ben. So it's Single Malt Alliance on Instagram, ben@smwsa.com. And thank you so much for dropping in and sharing everything with us, Ben. You're a star, and it's always a pleasure to chat to you, my friend.
All right, cheers, guys. Thank you.
Cheers, Ben. Until next time. Superb. I will be staying with you for the next little while. I've obviously got a bottle to uncork and share with you. I'll be honest, this Highland Park that I've just poured, I don't remember it tasting anything like this. It's been a while since I've poured from this. And it's actually very, very tasty tonight. Better, much better than I remember. And is that not all too common? Nicholas is saying, Aquavita, do they have shipping restrictions? Yes, they do, unfortunately, Nicholas. But, you can contact SMWS directly, because I think they're able to ship more internationally than a lot of points of supply. So you might get lucky. Adam Brudner had a question for Ben. Oops. Weird, surprising casks. Well, I've actually got one. I don't think I've got it up here. I have actually, because just in case we were going to share this tonight, I bought this because it's exactly that, a weird and surprising cask. This is a Blair Athol 8-year-old, and it's 59.1%. a recharred hogshead, but it's very, very dark. You would perhaps, by looking at the colour of this whiskey when it's in the glass, you would think it's from sherry, especially just at 8 years old. But this does not remind me of Blair Athol in many ways at all. There's lots of really, really kind of dark, challenging medicinal notes, almost like cough medicine. So like a cherry and eucalyptus, and you know, there's quite a lick of fresh, kind of almost minty notes, I would say. Even kind of imagine somewhere between a medicinal sweet, that kind of eucalyptus and mint kind of mixed together is very much prevalent in this bottle. And you might still be able to get this because it's not that old a bottle. I think I bought this earlier this year. This is 6815, and there are lots of bottles like that and available in the single cask space. Lots of kind of strange, weird and wonderful bottlings, but that one I bought because it struck me and it was what I would deem a real character whiskey, and I really do enjoy it when I'm looking for something a wee bit different. Okay, so we are just over an hour and 10 minutes in, actually. So before I keep you all too long again, I'm going to get on with what I would consider the main event for me, and that is uncorking batch 6 of the Teapot Dram. There was a delay with batch 6, and I heard various rumours and things, but eventually last week, as I say, it came out, and I was very happy to go along and grab some from the shop. I was really super keen to get my hands on it and try it, and I was very, very pleased to see that they had kept the price the same as last year at £90. It must have been tempting for them to put it up. Perhaps you could argue that £90 for a young whiskey is probably as much as they can ask. But I'm going to explain to you a wee bit more about what Glengoyne Teapot Dram actually is. And it's becoming a little bit of a cult whiskey. It's becoming certainly a favourite amongst aficionados, amongst fans of Glengoyne, and amongst fans of a young, bold sherry style. So this is it. It's already out of its tube. Hopefully you'll notice the colour immediately. And you might be surprised when I tell you that despite the colour of that whiskey, that the average age of the 6 casks, it was 4 butts and 2 hogsheads that was used to make up this batch 6. You might be surprised that it's only 8 or 9 years old. Gorgeous, gorgeous colour. It's almost a shame to open this and start to let that colour drop in a bottle because it's just a lovely thing to look at. I think you'll agree. There's slightly less in batch 6 than there was in batch 5. I think there was almost somewhere around 3,200 bottles of batch 5. There's 2,772 of batch 6. But the last time I checked at Glengoyne online, they still had plenty of stock available. So, you know, it's not the type of thing that people are queuing for. You can get your hands on this if you can access the distillery, because it is a distillery exclusive, but they will also sell it to you online. So I'll tell you a wee bit about Teapot Dram, why it's called Teapot Dram, why it exists, and what makes it unique, certainly unique for Glengoyne and their lineup. See if we can get a... quite a muted pop there. Now, I'll say what I always say when I do this, that this is a neck pour. This bottle has literally just been opened up in front of your eyes. And the best practice would be for me to have set this aside and waited 10, 15, 20 minutes or whatever to let it just kind of open up. But that makes for boring viewing, right? So we're just going to go on the neck pour. And then as it develops, I'll share it with you through other social media channels and things. And there's actually talk of me starting up the website again so that I can share little kind of blog posts with you. But right now that's still a wee bit dormant. I'm smelling it already. It's that sherry spice is very, very obvious just as I kind of hover above it. So it's just warm, just lovely, lovely, warm, very, very inviting. So the sherry cask that we had earlier tonight, the 16-year-old sherry cask strength Glengoyne that we had, the single cask one, was much sweeter and juicier than this. This is much more zesty, maybe like an orange type, orange peel notes. And I'm looking for that leathery note, the thing that hit me earlier on tonight. I don't have it yet. Really inviting. My mouth is literally watering. Should I go in for a sip or should I leave it? I wonder if anyone from Glengoyne is watching. Are you out there, Glengoyne? Anyone from Ian McLeod? Gregor is saying Aquavitae, the Glengoyne guys, rated batch 6 against 1 and 2. Yeah, it said that Glengoyne Teapot Dram batch 1 and 2 were the best. I never ever tried those. The first Teapot Dram I tried was batch 4. Don't know if I can attest to that from a neck pour. No, you probably couldn't anyway, even if I had a memory or of batch 1 and 2. I loved batch 5, absolutely loved it. I loved, had only 2 drams of batch 4. Batch 5, I got through 2 bottles of. Fantastic, fantastic whiskey. Really loved it. Shared the hell out of it. Sent it to everyone. I sent it to the Scotch for Dummies, the Scotch Test Dummies. I sent it to Whiskey in the Six. I sent it to Jason Whiskey Wise, No Nonsense Whiskey. I sent it everywhere. And the feedback that I got was very positive as well. Okay, it's very, very mouth-watering. Very, very spiced. Obviously, I've been sipping cask strength whiskies already tonight, so I'm not getting, the alcohol's not off-putting. It's not jumping out the glass. It doesn't really particularly smell like a strong whiskey. There are 2 guys in the chat tonight, Simon Ray and Stuart Peel. They know what I've just experienced. Neck pour. Fantastic. Finish is still going on and on. Fantastic. This is not going to be easy to stay away from. Glengoyne, I'll see you soon. Because I shared so much of the batch 5, I had to buy another batch of batch 5. Then I went up to buy, I called first to buy a 3rd bottle because I got through the 2nd bottle really quickly as well. And they had sold out of batch 5. I can't make that mistake this time. If I end up loving this and connecting with this as much as I did the last batch, and I'm fairly certain on that single sip that I will, I'm going to have to get another bottle. So this is terrific whiskey. And I'm going to give you the backstory because this teapot dram idea, it smacks a little bit of like a marketing thing, right? Let's call it teapot dram. Let's give it this retro story. But it's true. There are 2 guys at Glengoyne that are still working there, Duncan and Billy, warehouseman and Stillman, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I think that that's their current roles at Glengoyne Distillery. But they remember the days back in the 70s into the early 80s that dramming was still a thing in Scotch whiskey distilleries. And what happened, in order to try and encourage the workforce not to steal from the casks, they would give them drams. they would ration drams every single day. And these drams, especially in the case of Glengoyne, which is very much a sherry cask profile, it certainly would have been back then, they would have been drawn from fairly reasonable quality, but fairly young, bold, young sherry casks. So we're talking that this is bottled 8 or 9 years old. And they reckon that it would have been, it wouldn't have been from raw young casks. It would have been from decent casks. That was getting poured at Glengoyne for the staff. And it was getting poured into dramming cups in the canteen. And what would happen is that some people that weren't interested in receiving these were encouraged to take them regardless. And what they didn't want to drink would get poured into this copper teapot that sat in the staff canteen. So that the people that wanted a top-up or an extra dram, an extra cup of tea, would be able to go back later. Now, I think it was Stuart, is it Stuart Henry his name is? I can't remember for sure. I think it's Stuart Henry, who's the main business development guy up there. He heard this story about dramming, and he heard about the style of whiskey. And that inspired them to try and recreate this whiskey, to try and bring this whiskey back to life, just as a distillery only, just as an exclusive that people could buy as a souvenir at the distillery, and not widely circulate it, not have it as part of the core range, but just do a batch-driven thing. And at that time, it was batch 1 that came out, the first ever teapot dram, and it was very, very well received. Dwayne Large has just sent me in a dram as well. Thank you so much, my friend Dwayne, and happy belated birthday. I know you celebrated a birthday this week. Hi, Roy. A nice show today with Ben. I was at Glengoyne last month and did the Warehouse #1 tour. Exactly, you did. I chose the same sherry cask you did. It's fabulous, Dwayne. Congratulations on a year of live shows. Slant you, my whiskey friend. Dwayne, thank you so much. I can't think of a better dram to raise and say thank you for your generous virtual dram, Dwayne. Big, massive blast of cinnamon. And it's quite fruity as well. This is, like I said, it's my most anticipated whiskey this year, I would say. And it's not letting me down at all. Rev, if you're still in, I don't know if you're still in, my friend, but I am desperate to share this with you. It's an absolute cracker. Trent and Sear saying my teapot would always be empty. Yes. Fantastic. Yes. So that they would have this, so that when they tried to recreate this whiskey, they recreated it by using people that remembered those days. The Duncans and the Billies of this world, to try and recreate the style of whiskey that would have been part of that dramming concept that was quite rightly, I suppose, abolished. And I know that a lot of people like maybe Duncan, maybe Billy, and other people like them will miss those days and kind of look back on them fondly. But, in modern times, it's kind of just not an appropriate thing to do. But it was a real thing. So this whiskey has procured, and it's pretty much agonized over. When they select these casks, they don't just go in and grab a few, casks that fit the age and profile. They agonize over the selection, and they really, really try hard to put something representative and high quality together. And that comes through in my experience. It really, really does. Somebody was asking me earlier what kind of other whiskies are out there that would be likened to this. And I struggled. In terms of genre, you could have Tamdhu Batch Strength is another one. You could have Glenlivet Nadura. They do an Oloroso cask that could be similar. Glenfarclas 105, somebody suggested that's not really the same because that's a really quite large scale vatting, and it also has ex-bourbon in there as well. It's not strictly ex-sherry. Aberlour Abuna would be a good comparison, cask strength, ex-Oloroso style. So there are kind of whiskies out there that are like it. But I remember batch 5, and I remember sipping this alongside a couple of those other style of whiskies. And I did a blind taste, and I poured them all in just kind of glasses with coloured dots in the bottom like I do. And I shuffled it up, and the teapot dram stood tall. It was another step up. It was really Fantastic. And I'll probably be tempted to do that again. Wonderful. Wonderful. Jason Whiskey Wise is saying Aquaviti. Check the DMs. Ah, yes. Okay. Jay Chung is saying Aquaviti. I'm still hours away from leaving work. Didn't realize how much this would make me want to have a dram. I suffer from the exact thing, Jay. If I watch whiskey YouTube videos, if I'm on a train, if I'm sitting downstairs on the couch with the family or whatever, like, it just puts me right in the mind for having a dram. I absolutely understand what you mean. It's always going to be there on the replay for you, Jay. Thanks so much for joining in. Multi-Haggis Muncher, my friend Matthew, who gave me this fantastic set of samples. He's given me a Long Row 9. It's from the Springbank Society cask. He's given me a Cadenhead's Glengoyne 21, fantastic at 52.9%, finished in Chateau Lafite casks. Wow. He's given me a Long Row 16, a single cask, and 7 years in bourbon, 9 years in fresh Chardonnay. Wow. And he's given me a Hazelburn, 53.9% from a recharred, a 10-year-old single cask from a recharred bourbon hogshead. Matthew, these are fantastic, and I can't wait to burst these open and try them, because I know some of the stuff in this wee bag is exactly the style of whiskey that we've been talking about in the show tonight. Those kind of single cask, very unique experience type whiskies. We've got a couple of samples here as well from my friend Willie Dollier, who came back from a trip to Orkney, and he brought me back a couple of distillery exclusive samples from his trip to Highland Park, which included it looks like, I don't know if this is, I think this is a release. This is a Orkney Inga. The Legacy at 46%. And he also gave me, what's that? A 12-year as well. Are these both the same? So he's given me a sharing set. So he's given me one to send up to the Rev as well. Willie, that's really, really nice and thoughtful of you. Thank you very, very much. And just while I'm on the subject of samples, I'll share this with you, because this is awesome. This is from my friend Rolf, who you'll know as Ebhead or Whiskey Wolf. He's often in here. I haven't spotted him tonight, but there's a high chance he'll be here. And he's kept giving me a kind of cookie trail of samples from his tour around Scotland. And most of these, I think all of them, are distillery exclusives. Hand bottlings, or he's given me a blind. I don't know what's in this. It's just got a black arrow on it. Curious to know what that is. He gave me a Balblair 11-year-old hand bottling single cask from a bourbon cask. Looks like a 12-year-old. He gave me so he's been to Balblair Distillery. He also went to Tomatin, where he picked me up an 11-year-old distillery exclusive single cask. Fantastic. And Old Pulteney, he went all the way up to Wick to Old Pulteney as well. 21-year-old hand bottling. Wow. So this is from 1997. Cask strength at 52.4% from a bourbon cask as well. And also Highland Park. So he took the trip across to Orkney as well. And this is from a first fill American oak sherry puncheon. 50-year-old Highland Park at 60.3%. And finally, he's also sent me a he's from Norway. This is a Norwegian whiskey. This actually came up in a quiz recently. This is from Meakin Distillery, Arctic Single Malt. This is the only one that's actually inside the Arctic Circle. I think it's the world's most northerly distillery. And this is their second release. It looks like a 3.5-year-old, bottled in 2018. Wow. So super, super special stuff, and very, very kind and generous gestures from this fantastic community again. Thanks to all of you. Let's jump back into the crowd quickly. I've got a couple of housekeeping things to do. We can jump straight into the quiz, which is a very special quiz tonight. The Whiskey Rev has contributed no questions to tonight's quiz. I have contributed no questions to tonight's quiz. They are from, well, that's not true. There's a pictorial one in there that's from me, but all the questions in tonight's quiz are from Macallan, Fine and Rare, the doc. So he's contributed a quiz to take a bit of pressure off me. And I encourage kind of anybody, all I would say is that if you've reached the point of being able to score 10 out of 10 in a quiz like the doc has, and a few other of you have as well in a quiz, you have won the right to contribute a quiz, and I will be happy to share your quiz questions in one of these vPubs one night. So if you're excited about that, if it's something that appeals to you, let me know, contact me directly, and we can share a quiz. But tonight we have a doc quiz. Let's see if I've missed any questions from you guys before I go on. Malt Chronicles is Bart is in. He's saying, have a good night, you all. This was fun. He's off for a good night's sleep. You're an hour ahead of us, Bart. Thanks for joining. It's 11:15 here, so it's already midnight where you are. I appreciate all of you hanging around until this time. Jason is saying, interested to hear what you think of that long roll. We have a couple of bottles of it in town. Fantastic. Is that the one from Multi-Haggis Muncher? From Matthew, that's... if I sip that sample soon, I will try to bear you in mind, Jason, and share with you what I think. But listen, it's a Springbank Society long roll. It's going to be good, if that's the one you're talking about. Unless you're talking about the most recent long roll, which was the long roll red from a sherry cask. That was a dirty, dirty long roll. Very extreme in its style. If you like that type of whiskey, quite sulfuric, you're going to love it. But if that's not your style, I would avoid it because it's very extreme. It's very, very... It's a dirty whiskey. It's a real character whiskey. Kilted Moose, Scott. Fantastic, Scott. Good to see you in. It's the first time I spotted you tonight. When I was last at Glengoyne back in 2014, you could choose to sample the teapot dram from a Glencairn or a China teacup. Superb. Must go back. Maybe we can go back together, Scott. It's a great day out, a great day. Like the Whisky Rev admitted earlier, we actually walked from Glasgow to Glengoyne. It was a long walk. It was a really long walk. And I think we've done it twice. We walked on that trip to Loch Lomond. We stopped at Glengoyne, but there was also another day that we walked to Glengoyne and walked back in the same day. Fantastic. So how many of you are staying in for the quiz tonight? The quiz prepared by my friend that I'm looking forward to seeing this weekend. Tomorrow evening, I'm going out to Germany for Saturday's Interwhiskey Festival in Frankfurt. And I'm going to get to wander around that festival with the doc, the Callan Fine and Rare. I'm really excited about that. It's something to look forward to this weekend. First time in Frankfurt for me as well. And I believe that it's a very, very large scale show as well. Maybe I'll get a chance to meet some of the other Germans that are visiting there that tune into the channel, such as Whiskey Jason and the like. And we've got a couple of masterclasses booked as well. Christina Zapoli is saying, hoping for a barley pass again. Yay, quiz. Connor's saying, would be great to visit Glengoyne with you as it's a key part of both our whiskey journeys. That's right, Connor, we share that as well. Well, let's arrange it. Just let me know when you can get to Scotland. I'm already here, my friend. Let's arrange it. Gregor is saying, am I right, Roy, or is it seems there's not much alcohol burn as I do not see you in a hurry to open it up a bit? You're absolutely right, Greg. Now, I will, when I've got some time and I want to really jump into this dram, I will be tempted to drop water in it, but there is nothing making me want to drop water in this now. It's very rich. Such a long, long finish. You just... lovely and juicy. The spice just lasts forever. Yes, you can tell it's cask strength, but it's not a burn. It's just a nice spice. And I've obviously been conditioning myself as I've sat with Ben tonight, and we've been sipping these single cask and cask strength whiskies that, you know, my palate and my brain is conditioned for the higher ABV. So maybe that's the reason. But just for fun, I'll put a wee drop in and see if that changes things at all. Okay, let's get set up for this quiz. I've already mentioned that Scotch for Dummies are going live tonight. It seems like the guys at Cask Strength that do the kind of podcast style broadcast, seems like that they're choosing Wednesdays. I don't know, maybe Wednesdays and Thursdays still, but they went out live last night. So it's the Scotch for Dummies. I've got a live tonight at 2 o'clock in the morning. I hope you're able to join them. If you're on their time zone, it's going to be about 9 or 10 p.m. Eastern or Central time. And I've managed to mention everything else. I've talked about the samples, talked about this weekend's trip, and I've talked about the quiz at the end. So I think we're good to go. I hope you guys are as well. I'm wondering how you feel about collaborations and things going forward. I did a Patreon only live stream last week, and I'm talking about doing live streams weekly during December. Don't know how you feel about that. If you feel that the 2 weeks is working out at a nice pace, but over the course of winter time, when everybody's kind of sitting at home a wee bit more and it's darker nights, it just kind of makes sense to me to try and fit in a few more streams if you're up for it. Sometimes it will be just myself, but I'm going to try and lock down a couple more collaborations. I've got one locked in for the 13th where I have Scotch Adamson, that's Scott Adamson, from Tomatin joining me to talk about whiskey presentation, and that's on the 13th. And I'm still trying to nail a date with the guys at It's Bourbon Night. It might slip into next year, I'm not sure, but if we can do it this year, I'd like to do that over 2 shows actually, where we can do a Scotch facing show and a bourbon facing show. And there's a number of other collaboration invitations that I've put out there as well. And I had a discussion tonight with Rob at Whisky in the Six, who's desperate to share the Glengoyne 30 with me. So there's lots happening, and I feel that there's plenty content to keep us going through December and into January. If you felt like a temporary spell of weekly shows, we could probably accommodate that, especially given the fact that in summertime I disappear for 6 weeks or more. Dwayne is saying more lives sounds great, Roy. Excellent, Dwayne. Live stream weekly, absolutely. Is Kevin Bryant is saying, hey, Kevin, good to see you. Daniel is saying collaborations are great, fantastic, good to get the feedback. That's super important to me. I need to understand, how do you feel about the monologues for me when it's just a solo show versus collaboration? Alan is saying, got to go, Roy. I've got a teapot dram to open. Good for you, Alan. You're going to absolutely love it. Thanks for joining in and joining me again tonight. The Alchemist Sevi is in. Fantastic. Can you get a collab with North Star? That would be ace. Let me ask you, Sevi, what would be the value? What would be the value for the community? Just to expose North Star and their products. I mean, they're doing a fantastic job anyway. Wonderful whiskies I've tasted from North Star, if I'm absolutely honest. Yeah, you never know. With me, I always want to kind of bring a value, bring a topic of interest that people are going to have some kind of interest in listening to. Jason, if you're still available, my friend, I'm ready to start the quiz when you are. O&G said, you must be getting the vapors from all those Cask strengths. Your tree is waving at you. That's right, I've got a fan over in the corner, Owen. And just with the machine, running video and obviously monitoring video, it runs really hot and it blows warm air all over the room. So I've got a fan over there, and it's the fan that's making the plant wave to everyone. And Jason is saying, quiz time, fantastic. I'm ready. If you are, my friend, I'm going to try and rattle through this a bit quicker tonight. I know I always say that. And just see how we got on with the quiz, as contributed by my friend Macallan Fine and Rare, also known as the Doc. Very nice of him to do this. It took the pressure off me trying to put together questions. And what I will, it's actually worth pointing out, if I'm going to do weekly streams, tell me, if we're going to do it weekly, do you still want the quiz in there? And if you're a Connor Strang, if you're there's a number of you actually that have scored 10 out of 10 in the past. If you're one of those guys and you feel like you might want to put together 10 questions for me, it'd be very good to hear from you. Okay, first question. Which type of wood is typically used for whiskey cask bungs in Scotland? So we all know that Scotch whiskey has to be oak, but I'm specifically speaking about the bung to seal the cask. Which type of wood is specifically used? Is it A, oak? Is it B, Oregon pine? Or is it C, poplar? Tom Harris saying aquaviti. I could make a rum quiz for you. I don't know how much of a rum crowd we actually have, Tom. I've tried a couple of rums over the course of this year, and I've been quite intrigued by it. Don't know if it's a session dram for me because it's really quite sweet. But yeah. Anyway, the questions are coming in now for the answers, sorry, are coming in for question 1. Wow, looks like this is a giveaway question. Or is it a banana skin? The type of wood used for bungs is, of course, poplar. Poplar. Now, I have to make a confession here and say that I got that question right, but I did this quiz with the answers underneath. I knew what the answers were, but I did this quiz with the idea that let's see how many of these I could have got right. And I scored 5 out of 10. That's 5 questions that I absolutely knew in this set of 10 questions from the doc. Now, the other 5, perhaps I would have had a good educated guess at, and I would have scored 2 or 3 more and made it a 7, 8, 9 out of 10, who knows. But the ones that I absolutely knew I would have got was only a skin of the teeth pass mark for me. That was one of the ones that I would have got. So, sorry, question 2. Which Scottish malt distillery has the longest line arm in the industry? Is it A, Glendronach, B, Talisker, or C, Glengarry? So the line arm is obviously the point where the wash stills and spirit stills, they top off at the end, they become narrow, and they usually have a runoff onto the condensers. That's the line arm. If you know the answer to this, you already know what a line arm is. The Alchemist is saying aquaviti will bring a sample of Santiago de Cuba 12 rum when we next meet. Fantastic golden syrup for days. Beautiful. Fantastic, Sevi. That would be great. So lots of answers coming in for this. B's and A's all over the place. Lots of B's, lots of A's. Okay. Let's see. Connor Strang is saying Ardnahoe. If that's true, Connor, if Ardnahoe indeed has ended up having a longer line arm than this distillery, is Ardnahoe running spirit yet? I think it perhaps is just now. But you have to go from the 3 that's on this list regardless. Anyway, is it Glendronach, Talisker, or Glengarry? It is said that the longest line arm in the industry is C, Glengarry. So who answered Glengarry? Tony Evans said C. Jean de la Cuisine. John, good to welcome you in. He said C. Captain 3D has said C. Captain 3D, I think I know who you are. Did you just do a video? Is your partner called Deepa, and you did a fantastic blind video recently? I want to talk about that. I shared it on social media, but I don't know the name of your channel. If you tell me the name of your channel, and I might even put it in the description below, but there's a 25-minute video popped out on YouTube. It's not from a whiskey channel, but it's a whiskey video. And it's 25 minutes of your time utterly well spent. I watched it twice. I thought it was a fantastic video. If you're the guy that did that video, let me know. Loved it. Captain 3D is saying, yes, Miroy. Wonderful. So you are Phil. So Phil and Deepa put together this video where they went out and bought a ton, I think 20 odd bottles of whiskey, and blind tasted them and shared it all blow by blow, start to finish. Fabulous to watch. I encourage you, if you put in the link to your video, Phil, I'll make sure that it's moderated so that people can see it and they can copy it to their clipboards or whatever and maybe watch it. It's just a fantastic video. Kilted Moose Scott is saying that was a great blind taste and superb watch. Obviously, Scott, you might have picked it up from the links that I was sharing. And here it is, it's asking me to show it, so I'll show that for you. So the link that Captain 3D has just dropped in, right click on it and copy it. And after our live stream tonight, I recommend it's a great, great watch. Good to have you in, Phil. Thanks for joining. So let's see how many people are. Let's see what Connor is saying about. He's answered B. So he answered Talisker. Okay, let's move on to question 3. Which rock band does not have a whiskey named after them? I've put not in capital letters there. Which rock band does not have a whiskey named after them? Is it A, the Scorpions, B, Metallica, or C, Motorhead? I don't want to take any flack for these questions. I did do a quick verification and I verified the ones that I could verify easily, and they all looked reasonably whiskey tight, watertight. But this is a contributed questions, so I hope that only some of the hate comes my way and the rest of it can go towards the doc. And he's saying, Macallan Fine and Rare, the doc is saying, I just checked Ardnahoe line arm pics. They look shorter. That's too funny. Too funny. Okay. All over the place here. Everybody is saying A, B, C. Wow, this one's all over the place. Anyway, the rock band that does not have a whiskey named after them is, and I'm ready for the shouting, Metallica. Metallica does not have a whiskey named after them. The Scorpions has. I found it. I searched it on the web. The Scorpions indeed have a whiskey named after them. And Motorhead also have a whiskey named after them. I found it. Metallica were involved in a collaboration with the late Dave Pickerel, and they brought out a whiskey called Blackened, and it's very much a collaboration with Metallica, but it's not named after Metallica. They don't have a whiskey named after them, and I think Macallan Fine and Rare has admitted that that's a bit of a banana skin. But there you go. If you answered Metallica B, give yourself a point. Keeping your own scores as always, of course, as we move on to the pictorial question 4. Which distillery is this? Pretty gorgeous view there. Pretty gorgeous still house. Which is it? Is it A, Glasgow Distillery, B, Ardnahoe Distillery, or C, Clydeside Distillery? A, Glasgow, B, Ardnahoe, or C, Clydeside? Now, I know that some folk have already been looking at the Ardnahoe stills to see the length of those line arms, which I think is pretty funny. Okay, lots of people think Dundee Drammer is saying A. Lots of people saying C. Culton Moose A. The Alchemist is calling attention to Anita. Anita Niniel, I think that's Anna, isn't it? So you would know this. Okay, let's have a look. This fantastic looking still house is actually the still house that looks down the River Clyde in Glasgow. It's the Clydeside Distillery still house. Now producing spirit, but doesn't have any mature whiskey available yet. Not distilled there, at least. They are doing Rattray bottlings, I believe. Fantastic wee shop as well. Hoping to go down there tomorrow and pick up a Talisker, actually, before I head off to the airport tomorrow afternoon. Kevin is saying, Aquavit, how about a Scandinavian live stream? I've only tried Box and McMira. It would be interesting to learn a bit more about them. It'd be interesting for me to learn a bit more about them as well, Kevin. It's a decent idea. Richie Z is saying, Aquavit, I bought the Metallica bottle just a few minutes ago. Lol. You can probably testify that it's actually called Blackened, right? And I know that that's after a Metallica theme. Anyway, question 5. Which distillery has a strong link to the birth year of Scotch whisky? Interesting question. Which distillery has a strong link to the birth year of Scotch whisky? Is it Lindores? Is it Glenturret? Or is it Annandale? A, Lindores, B, Glenturret, or C, Annandale? Now, of course, when we talk about the birth year of Scotch whisky, that's is the oldest record we have of whisky being produced in Scotland. Happened in a very specific year, and that's what we're referring to as the birth year. You'll kind of know what I'm going on about, most of you. If you don't, have a guess. You've got a 33% chance. Captain 3D is saying B. Owen is saying B. John Pallister, B. Ardbaggy is just A for Kilted Moose, A. Total Guess. Alchemist, A. Santa Cruz, and A. Santa Cruz and Chris, it's great to have you in again. Fantastic to see you. Scott Mills, good to have you as well. Era is in. I'm going to see you this weekend, Era. I should have sent you a message, worked out what your plans are, but let's speak after this stream or first thing in the morning and work out what your travel plans are for the weekend. But I'm looking forward to seeing you in Frankfurt this weekend as well. Sid Martin is in. Good to see you, Sid. Matt Hill, is that a new name, Matt? Welcome in here. Good to see you. Jeremy Sims is in. Jeremy, good to see you. Great to welcome you in. Tom R, always fantastic to see your name, Tom. Thomas McCrory is in, and his partner Thomas and patron of mine. Good to see you in, fellow Glaswegian as well. Toby Field, fantastic to have you in, Toby, and thank you so much for your recent support as well. Danny is in. Willie Dolier is fantastic. Willie, I mentioned you already tonight. Let's go on and see what distillery is associated with the birth year of Scotch whisky. Of course, I'm talking about Lindores. So if you answered A, give yourself a point. And I'm talking about that in the Exchequer Rolls of 1494, how there was a message from Friar John Corr in order to make aquavitae for the king. He was given 8 balls of malt. Now, 8 balls of malt would have made somewhere in the order of about 400 bottles. So I think the king was planning his own little distribution network or a pretty big party. But it's the first ever written record of Scotch whisky production in Scotland. And it's the famous Exchequer Rolls of 1494, and it's famous at Lindores Abbey specifically. Tim Willie's in, fantastic. He's saying I'm late due to a work meeting. It's still mid-afternoon here in California. I appreciate that, Tim, and it's just great that you can join in from time to time. And I hope you're able to pick up anything of interest on the replay as well. Whiskey Whistle Mark is in. Awesome, Mark. Great to have you, my friend. He's saying hi, Aquavitae, and everyone missed this. Like I've just said, Mark, don't worry. It's available on the replay. Join in for the rest of the quiz and see how you get on for the rest of the questions as I move on to question 6. Which is simply, what is whiskey? Now, I know you're hoping for, it's a distillate produced from fermentable mashed grains, but that's not what we have here as options. We have, is whiskey a German meat dish? Is whiskey a Portuguese car? Or is whiskey a Turkish rock band? The doc's playing games with us a wee bit, don't you think? But these quizzes, they're a wee bit about education, they're a wee bit about prodding our curiosity, but they're a wee bit about just plain nonsense and fun as well. So is whiskey also a German meat dish, a Portuguese car, or a Turkish rock band? What do you think? Jeremy's telling Christina that 10% was a pass mark. You're safe. I'm not sure, Jeremy. 10% is perhaps a bit light. Connor Strang, I'm going to not share your comment. I'm going to continue to hide that. Thank you very, very much. But I understand your sentiment. Lots of people, actually kind of all over the place, mostly saying C. Some people think B. Okay, let's see. Whiskey is also a Turkish rock band. Yes, I checked it out, and there's an entry on Wikipedia for Whiskey, a band. I think they were formed in I don't know, they've been around for a while, the late 70s or early 80s or something, I'm not sure. They've been around for a while. There's a Turkish rock band called Whiskey. So, yeah, like I said, the doc's having some fun with us. Let's move on to question 7 and ask you which distillery uses Italian stills and French champagne yeast. So this distillery is doing things a wee bit differently. Instead of sourcing their stills at Forsyths or wherever, or using traditional distiller's yeast, they're using champagne yeast and stills sourced from Italy. Is it the quirky Bruichladdich? Is it the slightly off-radar Tullibardine? Or is it the pretty new Isle of Raasay distillery? A, Bruichladdich, B, Tullibardine, or C, Isle of Raasay? Let me know what you think. I'll be honest and say that this is one of the 5 that I wouldn't have known. But if I was to have a guess at this, I would like to think I would have got this one right. John Pallister is saying B. John, good to see you in. JW Bassman, good to see you in as well. Metal171 in. It's just the first time I've seen you guys. B, CCC, all those guys. Sillet Bang H is in. Good to see you again. C. Toys from the Attic, good to welcome you in. C. The Whiskey Dram C. Lots and lots and lots of people think C. Think it's Isle of Rassay. Let's have a quick look and keep this moving along. The distillery using Italian stills and French champagne yeast is Isle of Rassay. Well done. If you said C, give yourself a point as we go into 3 more questions to go. Question 8. This is a very good question. I like this one. Which of these pairs of distilleries are closest to each other? This is difficult. I appreciate that it's difficult. I would not have got this one, and I'll admit it to you, but I like the question. Closest to each other. Is it A, Scapa and Highland Park? Obviously both in Kirkwall and Orkney. B, Glenrothes and Glenspey. C, Bulvenie and Mortlach, both in Dufton. Now Glenrothes and Glenspey, are they in Keith? Where would they be? Now I actually went into Google Maps tonight and I checked the distances between these distilleries in order to make sure that the question was solid. I just think it's that's why I like these contributed questions, because I would never think to do that. I think that it's good that you can get these slightly different takes on these things. Rothes, of course, Glenrothes is in Rothes. So Glenspey, I guess, is in Rothes as well. Which are closest together? Willie Dollier, ONG, Gregor, Metal Man. Oh, sorry, Metal Man saying B, but the rest of the guys are saying C. Lots of people saying B. Ardbaggy, Andy, good to see you, Andy, is saying A. Let's have a wee look. The 2 closest to each other are actually Glenrothes and Glenspey. So if you answered B, give yourself a point, as so many of you did. Dundee Drammer said B. Christine Deems, good to see you, Christine. She said B. The Alchemist Sevi said B, good for you. Stephen Van Heerden, that's a new name, Stephen, welcome in. You got it right saying B. Toys from the Attic also said B. Nigel Slynn, good to see you, Nigel, said B. Jean-Paul van der Hoven, B. And Mose said B as well. Dwayne also got B. Fantastic, guys. Give yourself a point. As we move on to the second last question, which of these regions has seen the strongest growth in percent regarding new distilleries being built in the last 20 years? I'm missing some commas there, but which of these regions has seen the strongest growth in percentage terms regarding new distilleries being built in the last 20 years? Obviously, every time you look, it's almost like you see a new distillery that's either in planning or has started construction. There's a lot of it happening, but we want to know which of the 5 official SWA Scotch whisky regions has seen the most growth. Let's give you the 3 choices. Is it A, Highlands, B, Lowlands, or C, Speyside? Highlands, Lowlands, or Speyside? Just had another sip of this Glengoyne. So pleased. So clean. So clean. It's one of the things that Glengoyne does very, very well is a very clean, classy sherry. Or sherry matured malt. Great long finish as well. Looking forward to winding down after the stream and getting to know this whiskey a wee bit better. Okay, lots of you are answering all over the place. A wee bit again. Ardbaggy is saying B. Matt69 is also saying B. Jason Coates. Error B. Lots of people think B. B is in fact the Lowlands, but is it the region that's seen the highest growth in the last 20 years? Yes, of course, it is. It is indeed the Lowlands. So if you answer B for the Lowlands, give yourself a point as we move on to the absolute last question. Let's. We've not asked for a summary here. No need of water in that Glengoyne, Roy. It doesn't actually need it, Greg, but I did put a couple of wee drops in just a wee while ago. I don't think it needs it. And I think what I'm going to do is pour a wee dram after the live stream and just sit and take my time when I've got less things on my mind, and just kind of swim in the glass for a little while and get to know it a bit better. How are you scoring, all of you, as we go into the last question? Owen is saying 5 out of 9. Jeremy is saying 4 out of 9. Not bad. Jeremy, you've got a chance of getting a pass mark on the last question. And I have to be honest, Macallan Fine and Rare has given us a giveaway for the last question. Do a Sean pour after the stream. Tom is saying it's a great idea, Tom. Danny is saying surprised at Lowlands. Not really, Danny. Think about it. You've got Kingsbarns, you've got Lindores, you've got Daft Mill, you've got Eden Mill. That's just in Fife alone. You've got Ailsa Bay. You've got I'm going to run out now. I'm going to run out of inspiration. What else do we have close by? We've got Glasgow Distillery. We've got the Clydeside Distillery, Clutha and Planning. I'm sure that's not part of it. There's so many whiskies appearing down in the Lowlands now that that is the one that's seen to have the biggest growth of recent times. Okay, last question. The doc's given us a bit of a giveaway. He says, at what strength ABV are whiskey casks typically filled in Scotland? This is the fill strength. We touched on this a wee bit earlier with when I was speaking to Ben. The fill strength typically filled in Scotland. Are casks filled at A, 65%, B, 63.5%, or C, 61.3%? A, 65, B, 63.5, or C, 61.3%. How are we getting on, Doc? Are we doing okay with your questions? Have I made a mess of any of them? He's saying 20 years ago, there were only 2 in the Lowlands. Remember that Glengoyne isn't, so that would have been Glenkinchie and Auchentoshan. And Bladnoch was kind of open shut. But we've now obviously got Bladnoch's running again. We've got Annandale running again. We've got, I mentioned one earlier tonight. Oh no, it was Lindores. I've already mentioned Lindores. So yes, so there was next to nothing. And we're not talking about grain distilleries. We're talking about malt distilleries. Let's just see, would we actually talk about that? It wouldn't have mattered. We're obviously talking about malt distilleries. But here we go. In terms of fill strength, looks like it is a bit of a giveaway question. Everybody seems to agree, with just a couple of people off track a wee bit. Most people are saying, Trenny here saying another awesome live, Roy. Good night, everyone. Trenny C, thank you guys for joining us. It's great to have you and participating as well again tonight. I'm going to guess it's C that's joined tonight. Regardless if it's Trenny or C, thank you guys. It might have been both of you for joining. Let's see what the last question is. Question 10. The fill strength, typical fill strength in Scotland is 63.5%. I mean, that's just seen as an optimum kind of industry standard fill strength for filling casks, but it also makes it a hell of a lot easier for cask trading and things like that as well, if it's filled at the same strength. And that's a huge part of the Scotch whisky landscape, of course, is trading of casks. Kilton Moose is saying, Macallan Fine and Rare and Aquavita, great quiz. Thank you. Yes, Doc, thank you so much for contributing the questions tonight. Let's have a look to see who the winner is, because Macallan Fine and Rare is suggesting that it's Sevi, the alchemist. No, Sevi, you're kidding me on. Have you gone and done it? What have you done, Sevi? Tell me what you've scored, my friend. You got the last one right as well. Here we go. Jason Coates, 8 out of 10. Brilliant score, Jason. Well done. The Alchemist said we got 9 out of 10. He's best ever. You star. Sid Martin, 4 out of 10. Better luck next time, Sid, my friend. Jean de la Cuisine got 6 out of 10. He's pleased with that. It's a good score. It's a good pass. Matt 69 got a pass. 7 out of 10. Tony Evans, pass. 6 out of 10. Captain 3D, 4 out of 10. But I learned some things. Good, Phil. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you participated. It was good to have you along tonight. Our baggy, 7 out of 10. Well done, Andy. Superb. ONG is saying tough as usual. Yeah, the doc had a couple of toughies in there, definitely. A couple of oddball ones. And Christina's saying, Woot, not sure if I barely passed, but at least I didn't leave with just one right. 5 out of 10, Christina, that's a pass mark. You're welcome back again anytime. I don't care what you score, Christina, you're welcome here. But that's a decent pass mark tonight. Christine Deems got 8 out of 10. Superb. Dundee Drammer, 7 out of 10. Well done, my friend. Greg, 6 out of 10. Still a good pass, Greg. Whiskey Dram, 7 out of 10. Best score to date. Good for you with a number of guesses. Would have been the same for me. Whiskey Dram, don't worry about it. Mo's got 7. Kilted Moose, 6. James Allsop, 6. Toys from the Attic. Whiskey also interacts with the oak very well at that strength, Roy. That's right, it's just deemed a very optimal 63.5. Toys from the Attic. Do I know you from anywhere else? Is Toys from the Attic just perhaps your YouTube name, and I know you as a different name somewhere else? And The Alchemist, 9 out of 10. Superb, my friend. It looks like you take the spoils tonight. JW Bassman, 7 out of 10, great score. Connor Strang, 8 out of 10, didn't get the whiskey band or line arm. Connor's unlucky big guy. I know you always do really, really well. Still a brilliant score. Aaron McFault got 6 out of 10. Nice quiz. Thanks, Doc. Absolutely superb. And Matt Hill got 5 despite missing the first 3 questions. Well, you would have done really well. You can go back on the replay and see what the first 3 are and what you'd have scored, my friend. Thanks for joining, Matt. Okay, guys, I think I'm just about done. I'm really looking forward to sitting back with more of this absolutely fantastic Glengoyne Teapot Dram. Danny is asking me most of the live, how's the teapot? Honestly, on a neck pour, and I'll always qualify it as a neck pour, but it's already resplendent. It's going to get better and better. I'm just so happy they've done it again. Super tasty, young enough to have lots of spice and grip and boldness about it, really fresh and bright, but lots and lots of fruit ground, lots and lots of spice, lots of orange. I'm not picking up on the leather. I was hoping to pick up on this kind of leather thing that's in Glengoyne. I did get a trace of it with that Glengoyne 14 I had earlier tonight. Maybe a little bit later, when I get some peace with it, I'll pick out that leather note that Glengoyne is apparently renowned for. Wonderful to hang out with you again. Thanks very much to my guest tonight, Ben. His audio wasn't that great tonight. When I was speaking to him earlier, I don't know if he switched mics or something like that, but he went from being pretty clear to a wee bit echoey. I'm not sure how it was on your side, but wonderful to hang out with him again. He's an absolute gentleman, and if you ever get a chance to meet Ben, he's a very, very gracious gent and a fantastic guy to talk about whiskey to. Thanks very much to my moderators tonight, my friend the Whiskey Rev and my friend Jason Whiskey Wise. I hope everybody in this group knows Jason Whiskey Wise. He's got his own channel down there in London. It's been a bit neglected recently because he's been working full-time on jury duty, but I know he's keen to put out some more content now. And he's just a wonderful guy, very, very energetic, and a fantastic whiskey scholar as well. Jason, thanks for looking after me again tonight. Thanks to everybody that participated and joined in tonight. We're still over 100 people, just barely, as we go into the dying embers of the night and finish off the quiz. Thanks for participating in the quiz. Thanks to the doc for preparing a quiz and taking so much weight off me. If anybody else is interested in doing the same going forward, reach out to me directly and we'll see what we can arrange. Like I say, it's something that I would prefer to hold for the people who have won that accolade of scoring a 10 out of 10 in an Aquavitae quiz at the end. This has been wonderful again. Thank you all for your thumbs up and your likes. If you have enjoyed yourself tonight, leave a wee thumbs up and go into the comments after on the video as well and give me your feedback. Fantastic. What a wonderful Thursday night. Wonderful whiskies. Not least of all this. Well done, Glengoyne. Folks, I'll see you all, I hope, next week. I'm hoping to do live streams weekly throughout December. If I can get childcare sorted out for next Thursday night, I will do a live. I'll let you know in the announcements beforehand. And on the run up to Christmas, I'll try and cover weekly live streams to get us together so we can enjoy what I see as being whiskey season. And remember, the Scotch for Dummies go live later on tonight. And remember the video I told you about, that is a Phil and Deepa's blind tasting video, which is an astonishing project. And I encourage you to go and watch it and leave kind comments and leave them feedback and give them a thumbs up and share their video as well. When you see the work that they've put into it, you'll know that they deserve it. So until next time, thank you all, wonderful, wonderful whiskey community, for participating tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure to hang out with you. I'm looking forward to watching and reading all the comments on the replay, and I'll see you a week from tonight. Slant you, folks.